Okay, so the aim of this session is to cover the basics of using GitHub for our open science projects. And we need to understand why this is useful. We don't know if it's the best platform, okay? But it does have certain advantages that make it useful to use. One of the things that it's useful for is as a place where we can discuss things. Okay, so in a science project, you have to have a primary record of your experiments, and that's a lab notebook. You have to have all the data, of course, and a lot of that's in the lab notebook, and it can be on spreadsheets that we share, like Excel sheets and other things. We have PowerPoints for presentations that we do, all of this stuff. But if we want to share what we're doing, then we need a way of having a sort of hub of the project where people can try and understand what it is we're doing and can get involved. And there are lots of ways of doing that, but GitHub has a certain advantage in that it is free, which is one thing. It's also extremely well made because it's been made by, software coders, right? And so it's really robust, and it is surprisingly, despite its appearance, it is surprisingly user friendly and intuitive, in the sense that, and we've trialed this out, right? So we've had lots of people who aren't particularly good with computers try GitHub and get involved, and it seems to be okay, right? So we're using it for the moment, and it is quite powerful. Why do we want to use it? Well, of course, we want to try and share what we're doing, because that's the whole benefit of open science, is that you can do that. We do that in order that we can allow other people to get involved as real participants, not just as passive participants, but people who can actually do stuff with the project. That is a big deal. So, ranging from one person to two people or a whole range of people, right? So that we allow people in and we break down those barriers outside around the project. It's also very important for us to archive projects that might stop for any number of reasons. So let's say we pursue a series of molecules against a target, and we get to a point where we either run out of money or we run out of ideas or what, and the project then would otherwise die. Now, in a traditional academic project, we would lose that stuff. Typically, it might sit in a lab notebook in a lab for forever, and no one would know about it. And lots of industry projects are like this. If they're killed, sometimes there's no need internally to publish any of that work, and it can get lost. So with an open project, we have the advantage of so-called immortalizing a research project, right? You've got all the data and all the ideas, and it's there ready for someone else to take over. So you never lose anything. And I envisage many projects to be like that. In the case of Yinuo's project, for example, in open source malaria, that project was parked for many years, and was reawoken by some new biology that came through a couple of years ago. But everything was there, right? Including the lab notebooks elsewhere, but everything was there ready to go. So we hadn't lost anything. So it was, it was very useful. Okay, so GitHub has its role in this of helping us to share where the project's up to and share conversations about what to do next. And it helps us to assign tasks. It helps us to run meetings because we can very easily edit, action items and to-do lists and things like that. And we can even use it to share files, as I'll show you. So it's pretty useful. All right, let me share something then with you, which is this one, I think. All right, so here is a typical page from GitHub. So in this case, so you can see at the top, this is GitHub, and it's the open source malaria organization. All right, so GitHub is a big site. And if you want to start a whole new thing against a disease, so a big project like this, then you need to start what's known as an organization. And we don't really need to do that now. I'll show you why in a second. But if you, on your profile page in GitHub, you can see your the things you belong to. And most of you will have one of these things. I've got quite a few because we've been starting a bunch of different things. But you can see that the idea here was to start a sort of collection of stuff under certain headings. So we've got obviously open source antibiotics and malaria and mycetoma. These are very active. And the SGC one is also very active. We have a webpage for the group, right? Because that's quite convenient too. But you can see the idea that there are big things here for different diseases. So Evans, I just today started open source onco, and we'll come to that, right? Because we needed to do that because your molecules are designed for onchocerciasis, right? And they're not designed for malaria or TB. So we started this, and I'll get to that in a sec. But these are the big things, and we shouldn't need any of these. But within those organizations, then there are lots of different projects, and there are people who have been invited to join and are involved over here. And then there are all the different projects, and the projects are organized by things called repositories, these things. So each project within an organization, so each project relevant to malaria or each project relevant to a chemical probe for the SGC has its own repository. And all that means is just a big collection of stuff that's relevant to one research project. So this is series 3 in open source malaria, which is the one that Yinyo is working on. This is series 4, which is the one that Ed was working on, and there are the others there. There are also little things that we can do also, like organize everything about how to do stuff together and stuff like that. But really the point about a repository is that that's for your project. So the idea behind this session today is to think about how we start a repository and then actually to do that. Because each of you at the moment needs to start a repository so that you can start sharing stuff. All right, let's go into one. I'll switch to the SGC one just so you can see it. There are a bunch here, right, of different projects that we're running, and we can just pick one at random. Doesn't really matter. These have been coming thick and fast recently, and a few of them that will start today will be in this too. But these two are the ones that Eve is involved in. And so what this is now, this is a repository for a project, and this is to do with a particular target. So this is Chemistry Network Project 6. We're numbering them sequentially just to keep them in order. And the target is this thing called ABHD2, which is a protein target, and we've been trying to find a binder, an inhibitor of that. And so within this project, this is all the stuff here, and we'll talk about what this is. But within this thing, the main parts of this are this front page, right, which tells you what it is. And you got to imagine yourself as someone coming along, seeing this for the first time, and you got to think, well, here is this stuff. Does it explain what this is? Hopefully, and if it doesn't, then you change it. The other parts that are important, I mean, you can see how crowded it is, right? And the reason it's crowded with all this stuff is because it's used for computer coding, and we're not really using it for that. We're using it for other things, so we don't need all this stuff. But you've got to sort of filter it out a little bit. The key things really are firstly the issues. So this is where you talk about stuff, and each of these has something that is where a discussion is taking place, or there's some meeting that's taken place, and you can have the minutes and actions and outcomes and stuff. You have open ones, you have closed ones. So when you close an issue, it stays there, it just gets filtered out, and you can move to it if you want to, but you can still see them. Nothing gets deleted. And each of these things is something that is discussed. So in this case, it was a meeting that happened on September the 18th. All right, but that's a place where you can discuss things. And as you can see, there are different people taking part in these things. This one's just Eve, but this is where we sort of discuss stuff together, and that's where most of the debate about things will take place. Okay, that's where it is. Each of these issues is as we'll cover, I think, in a separate thing. The idea is that each of these issues is a discussion about something specific that can be resolved and finished. So a lot of these meeting things we should have closed already and folded them into something else. But the idea is that these are live conversations, and they are framed in a way that they can be resolved and finished and closed, and the conclusion of that conversation can go into something else. So in the summary of the project, right? So they're not meant for long-term things. They're meant to be finished and completed. And then the other thing which is really important is the wiki, which is meant to be like the living paper that we've been talking about. So it's meant to be about project status. So if you're interested in what this project is and you come along from somewhere else and you want to figure it out, or if you want to send someone something about the project and say, well, this is what we're doing, what do you think? Then what you want to do is send them this page, the wiki page, so that they can understand the origins of the project and the story so far and what it means to be part of it, and then stuff about the target and then what's being done. So the idea behind the wiki is that you fold in everything that's going on into this document so that people get a good idea of where we're up to. This is the challenging bit, and historically it has been difficult to keep this up to date. But hopefully, if you are a project champion and it's your project, it is easier because you can, obviously you're motivated to keep it in good condition. All right, so if we the code thing, by the way, is the beginning page, and it's got this thing up here, which is the shared file system. That's what that is. So on many projects, we do have lots of data. So this is a bit like Dropbox, this bit. So this stuff with it where the files is a bit like Dropbox, and can get quite big if you want. But there's lots of like PowerPoint decks you can get, and you can share things that people have. It's quite cumbersome to share files this way on the website. You can do it, no problem. So you can add a file, right? So you can upload a file if you want to, but it tends to be one by one. So it's a little bit cumbersome. So this is where the desktop thing comes in, which you hopefully have downloaded and signed into. And I will just, I think I have to, it might be easier just to share my screen actually, which is this one. Okay, so hopefully that's my screen now. Is that my screen? Hopefully, okay. So this thing here is, if I can grab hold of it, this is the GitHub desktop. So this is the thing which is running on my machine. And if you download this, you can run it on your machine and you sign in. And the point about this is that it connects the stuff on your computer, on your local computer, your laptop, to the stuff that's in the cloud. Okay, so if I, just as an example, if I go over to Structural Genomics Studio and what we're looking at, ABHD2, then the stuff this is the GitHub desktop program looking at that repository online, and my local computer. So here's the stuff on my Mac. I've added this folder called Git, which is the stuff on. So this is a folder I created on my computer. And as part of setting up the GitHub desktop, you tell the program, okay, where's all my stuff going to go? And what it means is that the stuff that you have on your computer and the stuff that's in the cloud is then synced, so it matches, and things are automatically updated. And if someone posts something in the cloud on GitHub, you can download it to your computer very easily, and vice versa. So if you save something to your project on your computer, you can then very quickly upload that to GitHub so that the two match. It's just like Dropbox. So you have to specify where that is. You have to put it on your local drive. If you try and put this folder, this Git folder on something like Google Drive or Dropbox, something which is already synced, it complains, I think. So it's meant to be on your local computer. It's quite nice though, because it means everything's backed up, right? So you don't lose anything. And so I've got different folders here for the different organizations, and there's my SGC one, and there's my ABHD2 one, and this thing pretty much matches what's online. But GitHub tells me that I've added a few things to my computer that are not yet online. That's what this is. And it says, do you want to sync that? And we can deal with that a little bit later, but these are 4 files that are currently on my computer but not online. So there's a way of matching it. So there's you can pull stuff off the web and you can push stuff to the web and thereby sync everything. And it's a very nice way of sharing files relevant to a project. All right. I think rather than do that now, I was going to deal with the issue of starting a repository. which is what we all need to be doing. If that's all right. Does anybody have any burning questions before we go through the process of starting something where you're going to put your stuff?
Just one question about anyone can keep his account even after, for example, he finished his PhD or postdoc or anything like this.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's all available, right? So
Okay.
the GitHub account, if you've made your GitHub user account using your UCL email or something, then you will at some point just have to go back in and change that. Okay. If you leave, right? So some people use like Gmail or something because then they think, well, if I change jobs, I'll still have it. But yeah, you don't lose it, and it stays associated with you. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
So I was just wondering, just like Wiki and other, where was the link for these files?
Right. Yeah. So the shared files are in the top bit here. They're in the kind of code tab.
Okay.
And this is just like a regular file system that you might have on your computer.
Okay. Yep.
And that should match this that's on my computer pretty much.
Okay.
It doesn't quite, right? And that GitHub is warning me of that it doesn't quite match it. So that's what GitHub has, and that's what I've got. So obviously I've added some files in 2023 that aren't there yet. Why don't I show you what happens when we do that? So so if I want to sync it properly, this is showing me that these files aren't synced yet, that I've got stuff on my computer which isn't online. So what I can do is I can make those go there by doing this. So I want to push that up there, and I can say some 2023 files or something. And then I'm committing to this is a bit of jargon. You commit to the main, which just means you're pushing everything to the main repository that's online. It says that I need to pull the origin. So it says that there's one change at the origin, which is the thing that's online. There's one change there, and I need to pull that first. So let me just do that, because that means that someone has added something which I don't have. And now I can push the stuff that I've just put from my computer to the website. So you sync it by pulling stuff from the web first, and then pushing stuff up to GitHub, and that just aligns things. The reason this is useful is because you can basically for a month at a time, you can keep all of your files to do with the project in one place on your computer, in this Git file, on your local computer, and then every now and again you can just push it to the web, and that means you share everything. So it's pretty useful. You don't really have to worry too much about using anything other than your computer. So now I've done that, then what should happen here is if we go on the website, then this should now be updated, and there they are, right? So there's my new stuff, which I just uploaded a minute ago. Yeah.
So the syncing has to be done manually, or can it also be like on the real time?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. It's a good question. I'm not sure. It would be pretty useful if it was real time, right? I've never tried that, but I bet that's something they've considered, unless you want the finer control of it. I'm not sure. Again, maybe the use of it by software people is a bit different from what we're doing. We've got sort of files and data and stuff, and software people like commit code and have it checked by people, and it's a little bit of a different use case. But yeah, maybe it's possible. Sure. Okie doke. So imagine then that we are working as part of the SGC, let's say, or as part of open source malaria or whatever, and we want to start a new repository for our project. Then we can do that very easily and this is what many of you need to do, by clicking the new button here, right, that green one. And it says, okay, create a repository. And just remember that repository means project, okay, which is a self-contained thing for your project. So for this is where you just need to think a little bit about the name that you're going to use. And I guess there's normally this is easy because for the number of the project, for the chemistry network project thing that we're doing, you just you do the next number up. So we're currently up to 8. So project number 7 is Hadia's Tetrazole project, the RDRP project. And number 8 was the one that we started a while ago now for for Alvaro's NSP13 indels, which is there already. So we're up to 9. Okay, and which is fine. So we might want to start number 9 here, but then because we're all doing it at the same time, you know, we just got to make sure that we don't screw things up, right? And accidentally start project number 9 at the same time as somebody else is starting project number 9. So what I would recommend is the following, that this is part of the HGC. So Hadia, you would start CNP 9 here like this. And that presumably what we could do with that is NSP 10, like 14 for frags or something, right? So something like that. You can't have spaces here because it's going to become the name of a website.
Yeah.
When you define this, but put something in there like that. So you've got the CMP 9, which gives it a unique identifier, and then something about the target, which makes some sense, and keeping it fairly short.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. So for Alvaro, then you've already got the NSP13 indels one. So I reckon you want CMP 10, and then like chickpea, like, you know, quinones or something, right? So for the ones you're currently trying to make, which don't have a target, right, but it's still a series that we're looking at, that would be for you. And then I think Rebecca, if these people are here, it doesn't matter, we can of course they've got the recording. So for Rebecca, it would be something like CMP, what are we up to, 11, and then that would be like NV RDRP. And then this is where the issue comes in. If you don't have, if you've got a target like this, a protein target, but you've got multiple projects, then you don't want to get it confused by having different screens and series part of the same project, ideally. Really, ideally, a project is going to be for a particular target and a particular screen, and ideally a particular chemical class. But at the moment, we have this slight difficulty that we are getting screens against targets. And we don't yet know which molecules are going to make it through to be pursued. So what I would recommend here is splitting up projects, because Rebecca's got about 3 screens that she's triaging. So I would recommend something like LifeChem, all right, because the Life Chemicals 50K set was one of these, and there's 2 others, which can be split into separate repositories. But start with this one, something like that. Yeah, Raman, you got your hand up.
So as the project evolves and you develop some clarity about the target or the hit, can this repository name be optimized, modified later on, or is it fixed on day one?
Yeah, I don't know if it's fixed. I can't remember if you can change the name. You'd think you would be able to, but the risk then is any links. I don't actually know if the links to the old name of the website are broken or if they carry on. So I don't know. So,
because in that case, even if we have 2 group members choosing the same CNP12, then that can be modified later on, or if the target is identified, or so.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Hopefully, yes. I'm not sure. It's a good question. If we get conflicts like that, it's a good question. Don't know. For Shin, I guess you would be CMP12, and there's NSP15. And to make it clear which one this is, I guess something like TAMU, right, or something that identifies the molecules. So TAMU is Texas A&M University, right, because that's where the screen was done. So something like that, but it's really up to you. But certainly CMP12, NSP15, and then something which helps people realize what they're looking at. Okay, and then yeah.
But just here for the repository name, responding to Rahman question, I think if the username already used, it should be unavailable, because when you write, you see it's available. That means no one used the same name.
Yeah.
No, so like if I can have CNP12, but then rest of it is different, then you can also have CNP12 and you can modify the last part, right?
Yeah, maybe. I think,
so
yeah,
that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for Mosen, you would have something like CMP13, and then it depends on what we're going to do, but initially what we'd be looking at is something like RBBP4, and then Plasmodium ortholog or something like that. So you can make it up once you've got the beginning bit and something about the nature of the protein target. You can add something on as you see fit that describes what the series is. And then for Kangping, we're talking about CMP14, and then this is going to just be WDR91, I think, presumably, because there's like one series for that, and it's simple, something like that.
Okay.
All right. Now, I'll get to well, actually, we can do it now. No problem. We can do it now. I'm gonna carry on with this in a second, but just for the other people online here, then so for Wellington, I guess the thing you would want here, we already have an OSM Series 5, which is not very well done here. I don't see much of it at all, but it is that. So we're up to Series 6 here, and it's a little bit different here, but we can employ the same kind of thing. What you would have here, and you need to get yourself onto open source malaria if you're not already, but it will be OSM 6. Oops, sorry, that's not 6. And then it would be marinoquinoline or something like that, right? So that would be, you'd use that as the name because that makes sense, right?
Okay.
Okay, so that would be you. And then so Guy, if you want to do this, it's up to you how you want to do this, and if you want to do this, right? Because you're in charge of your project. But if you want to do this, then what are we up to here? There's Series 4, right? So you could, if you wanted to, in open source TB, OST, no, that's already there. Series like 5, I think is what it is. And then something like MERS or something like that. You want, right? Anything you want to do, right? So you could have a go doing that, and it might fit well if that is the primary application in TB.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have that do that. Yeah.
And then lastly, so Evans, this is a challenge for me actually because this is a brand new thing. It's so new. No, that's just me. That's not good. It's so new that it is. Whoops. Wait a minute. Sorry. I don't even have a link to it in my web browser. So open source Onco. See, I put a nice little logo there. It's good, isn't it? River blindness. All right, so this would be the first repository of this organization. So this is a new one for me. I guess create new repository is that, and then what you'd have then is open source Onco, right? OSO 1 or something, and then you'd have something like shift bases or something, right? So it's something which, and you can change that if you want to, but it describes, it gives it a number, a unique identifier, and then it's got something that describes what the project is about. Okay, so you've chosen the name of your, I think that's everybody, you've chosen the name of your organization and your repository, and then so I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to start one that is called a template. So just ignore this. I'm just going with this because I actually want to start a template repository which clarifies what should go where. And then a description, you can give it anything you want. This is a template repo to help people start. And you just got a very few options here. So it's actually really simple. I know it looks busy, but it really is simple. So you click public, first of all, in part because that's the point. But secondly, public ones are free. If you want to have it private, it usually costs money. You want a README file because that's the thing that appears on the front page, which is going to explain to people what they're looking at. I don't know what this is, so I've always ignored it, which is good because it's actually called git ignore, so it helps you ignore it. And then the license here is a funny one. So there is a very impressive list of open source licenses here. And none of them are quite right as far as I'm concerned. And we can go on and on about why this is later, but these are all licenses to do with software and code, right? And it's not quite the same for us doing science projects, where we have to worry about other things, like data and physical samples and stuff like that. So the license that we have adopted to date for everything, as an approximation of the license we need, is something called a Creative Commons CC4 BY license. And it's a bit like this one, this 0 license. But what this means is that you can use the stuff that you see on this website is in your project for any reason whatsoever, including to make money, right? So it means that if industry wants to come along and use what you've got in order to try and make money with it later, they can do that. And that means they are involved, and they're not worried about getting involved in something which they can't then use later on to make a drug. So it's a Creative Commons license for that reason. The 0 there means that you can use whatever you want and you don't have to cite the project. You just got absolute license to do whatever you want. To me, that is slightly out of sync with academic normality, which is where you would always cite your sources and where you got stuff from. And so the CC BY license means that you can use anything you want in the project for any reason, including to make money, provided you cite to us. That's all it is. But it doesn't exist here, so you can't pick it. All right. So just say none, and we'll clarify it later. Okay, on the website. Licenses are extremely boring. Okay, but they are very, very important, because it's really important that everyone understands the rules, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and importantly, what they're allowed to do without asking permission each time. Okay, so people don't have to come along and say, do you mind if we use this? Because you've spelt it out right there. It just cuts all that out. Okay, so that's it, right? So all you do is you choose your name. I've got template. You choose, just like change that, repo template. You choose the public, you add a README, you say, you ignore this because I don't know what it means. You choose the license, which is none, and then you're there. You create a repository. All right, so it starts looking exactly the same as everything else, all right? There's just this README, which is this thing here. And you've got all the other things, right? But there's no issues yet, and the wiki's blank, right? So everything's blank. Okay, so we've started that, which is good. And the key now is to think about how to actually add stuff. Now, we haven't got time today to go through all of this, okay, about how to add stuff. But I just need to make a couple of points about this, some really basic points. One is that you can edit anything, right? You have complete control of this thing. So you can edit this README file just by clicking on the little pencil there. And it looks a bit technical, right? And a bit weird, but it really is very simple. So I can just add something here, which is something like the license for this page is CC by 4.0, unless otherwise stated, or something like that, right? So I just added a little bit of text, and then this is a README file that looks a bit weird, but you just commit the changes to it, and you just commit the changes directly to the main branch. Don't worry about the branches too much, and there it is. All right, so it's already there. So you can change it immediately, and you can add lots of things, right? And you might think, well, how do I do stuff like add pictures and make it fun and add links and all that kind of stuff? And this is where the second thing comes in, which is really great about stuff like this, is that you can copy. So you can just copy as you want if you're part of an organization. So here's an existing repository for PLC Zeta 1. So Eve has done a bunch of this stuff. And as you can see, there's a bunch of things about what the project is, and a lot of this stuff will apply to you. There's some names of people who are involved, and there's a little logo down here for Open Chemistry Networks, all this stuff, right? So you think, okay, it's going to take me ages, right, to write all this. How am I going to do all this and still have a life? Okay, so what you can do, of course, though, is you can click the edit button, and there it all is. So all you do is copy that, right? And you can copy it all the way over. So why don't I try that? And I can just copy this thing, which is something about the Open Chemistry Networks Initiative and some garbage there that I previously wrote. And I can try and put this here. So I'm back to my original thing, and I'm just going to take what I copied from over there, and I'm just going to paste it there, and I'm going to commit the changes. And that didn't work very well, did it? Uh-oh. Why didn't it work? That's not good. Maybe I need to... Okay, there it is. Right. So it just needed a second. So I added that text and I added that little garbage thing, and suddenly I've got a picture on there, right? And I didn't have to work out how to do that. I just copied it from somewhere else. So that's one of the great things about using GitHub is it's just like Wikipedia in the sense you can click on a page and you can click on something which helps you look at what's behind the page, and so you can see how people do things. So on Wikipedia, if someone does something fancy with like a color-coded table, you think, oh, I'd like to do that on my page. You just click on the edit button and you can see how someone's done it, and you copy it over to the page you want. Same here. There are a lot of extremely talented people using GitHub, and there are a gazillion sites where people have done clever things. And so you can often copy stuff over that you like and want to use in your own site. It's really good for that. So don't feel as if you have to start everything from scratch. We can deal with pictures later because it's a little bit involved, how to add a picture to something. But just to say, in the issues area, that it's very easy to share stuff on issues. Okay, so if I actually, we'll do a separate thing about issues, about how to use issues properly, because we haven't got time for that. But adding images and files to issues, there's a lot of dragging and dropping. It's very straightforward to do that. Okay, and like I said, issues is where we talk about stuff. Okay, so just to maybe state the obvious, just because we'll come to a close in a minute. To state the obvious, if you want, GitHub is meant to be about discussing things, and if you want to, sharing things like PowerPoints, and if you want to, organizing meetings and getting people together to talk about stuff, it's a very good place to build a network. So you can tag people with their usernames very easily if you want to alert them to something. So, for example, in the open source Mycetoma project, we have these monthly Zoom meetings where each issue is one of these things. And you can see that when we organize these meetings, right, we have the different stuff about the meeting, and we have the link there for the meeting, and then all the stuff that people need to do. You can have these sort of check boxes and assign actions to people. And when you mention someone with their username, it tags them, and they will get an alert by email that they've been tagged in something. So it's a very nice way of if you're talking about something and you think, oh, actually, this conversation is relevant to this person over here, and you want to ping them to it, you can just add their name there, and they'll get an alert that that's happened. Another neat thing about this, and which can help keep conversations together, is that if I'm on this issue here, and if I refer to this issue somewhere else on GitHub, it will install that on here somewhere. So there'll be a little alert to the fact that we've mentioned it somewhere else. And of course, now I can't see that at all, right? It's not an example there, but it helps connect two things together. So if you end up talking about one thing in two places, it's extremely easy to connect those conversations so you don't duplicate. But if you want to share details of things, right? So lots of information or lots of data, then the option is either to sort of bung it on here in like an Excel sheet or something, or just link to your lab notebook where you can keep all the data together. So if, for example, you wanted to say, oh, the NMR I did the other day showed that this methyl group is missing or something, you can put a picture if you want to, or you just link to your lab book where the NMR is. Okay, so there's a nice way of doing that. And that is, I think that's it. So on the later things that I think we need to do, we need to cover how to use issues properly so that they're productive, how to do the wiki so that that's kept up to date, and things about how to build a community. So once you've got all this there, how do you use that to get people together and to bring people into the project, which is ultimately what we're hoping to do here. So we'll deal with those separately because they're all a little bit separate. But for the moment, please do try and create your repository with the names that we just mentioned, and start thinking about how you might want to put the site together. So particularly with regards to the the README at the beginning. So do have a look at some of the other projects that we have and see how it's written for people who don't know what this is. Okay, so you've got a scientist who comes to you and says, I'd love to get involved in a project to do with this protein because I know something about it. What you want is to be able to forward them this link and have them read this and get the basic idea of what's involved. Okay, so it's meant to welcome people in. The detail goes on the wiki about origin and story so far and all the details, but the initial thing is making sure that this front page is understandable. That's all. So you'll need some of what's on the screen there. You'll need that. You'll need to include that suitably edited. Okay. All right, that I think was everything I wanted to cover just in this first session about starting repositories and what they're for. Did anybody have any last questions they want to raise?
Just very short question about the
Yeah.
meetings. We have the chemistry core D meetings every 2 weeks. Is it a good idea to submit or to upload the slides for example, my slides for each meeting on my profile?
Yeah, so it's a good idea, sure, because what you can do here is, let's see. Yeah, I mean, so if you had a PowerPoint file or something, and you had it on your computer and it was saved in the GitHub area of your computer, and then you synced it and it appeared on here, then you can easily just copy the link right to it and then share that with someone in an email, and people can download it, right? So it's a very quick way of sharing files like that. I mean, it's really pretty easy. So yeah, instead of sending them on an email, you can just send the link.
Better than sending the slides.
Well, it can be. It's however you want to do it. But it's a nice thing to get the habit of, right? So to try and default to open, right? So anything that you're working on the project can be open, right? There's no need to keep anything secret, right? I mean, nothing personal, right? But anything to do with the project, data and ideas, it can all be public. So if you save everything to do with the project in your GitHub file on your computer and keep on syncing it, then it will all appear here, right? And it means you can easily share anything you're working on with anybody.
What about papers? If we have interesting results and we need to have like confidential data for our published papers?
There's no confidential data in these projects ever. If you be careful sharing published papers here, right? Because many papers in journals are copyrighted, and you can't just download a thing from JAX, for example, and share it here because the copyright will be owned by the American Chemical Society. So just be careful of sharing PDFs of other people's papers unless they are licensed and openly available, right? If they're open access papers, you can share them. If they're not, then don't share the PDFs on the website. I mean, you won't get into big trouble, right? I mean, I'm sure because it's fair use, but just be careful of some papers because they're copyrighted. But no, apart from that, all data we have are freely available, so you don't need to worry about what to share, right? Because everything can be shared.
Okay, thank you.
It should make your life less stressful.
Yeah, Prof, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said if anyone has used UCL email to create an account on GitHub, you will need to change it.
No, you don't need to. But you don't. But if you leave, you might want to, right? Because you want to maintain access to your stuff. So at that point, I think you just change. I mean, I think I've done it. You just change on your account, you change your email. That's all.
Okay. So it's possible to change account to change your email while you have already created the account.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Matt, I have a question.
Yeah.
So these repositories, they're public, right? But does it mean that they are public for viewing for people just viewing, or can they actually edit the public ones?
Okay. No, great. So I mean, the most important thing, of course, is it's openly available to read.
Just to read.
If people but that's the default. But if people have a GitHub account, they can usually comment on issues, I think.
Okay.
But I think that if they want to do stuff like change other things more significantly, like change the wiki or start a new issue, I think, or edit other things like the README. So I think then they have to be invited to be members of the organization.
Okay.
Yeah. But just based on what we've been doing for the past few years, I'm pretty sure that people who are not invited can comment on issues, and that sort of helps the conversation a little bit because I'm pretty sure that's right. But if you are but each of you should be a member of those organizations, and if you're not a member of those organizations, I just need to invite you, and you'll get an invitation, and then you can join.
Perfect, thanks.
There is another level of subtlety here as well, that within an organization, you have all these repositories. You can also have teams of people as well, who are like a team involved in this protein or a team involved in this protein, and you can keep those together. And the only reason why that's useful is you can then message everyone associated with that project at the same time. But it's a little refinement that is kind of useful a little bit. But so you can ping everybody essentially, right? If you're asking everybody, what do you think about something, or if there's an important development or a new paper or something, you can tag everyone in with one line, and everyone gets the alert. But we can do that later. That's not that important. All right, so slowly, and we'll do this bit by bit because there's a lot to take on board. But hopefully, as you start using it, you'll realize that it's really actually very straightforward. And I would say that because it's so massively used, right? GitHub is the biggest website you have never heard of. It absolutely is colossal. So many active users, it's enormous. So the amount of help that you can get online, right? If you search for a problem or something, right? The amount of help you get is amazing. I mean, if someone solved every problem you can think of on GitHub. The language that's used to format everything, this thing, which is here on the front page. If you click on here and you see this stuff, so the way it's done, the way the stuff is there and the way it's rendered by the website. So the way that looks versus the way that looks. The language behind it is called Markdown, and it acts a little bit like a very simple version of HTML. And lots of people are completely fluent in Markdown, right? So if you want to know how to do something like bold something or indent something, or do something funny and change colors, there will be help online. There's lots and lots of it. Another good thing about it. Okie doke. I think that's everything. That's very, very useful. So please go ahead and start your repositories with those numbers and roughly those titles that we talked about, and then we can take it from there. So that's really good. Good way to end the week. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I'm very glad I took the day off. I've been coughing ridiculously a lot today, so I'm glad I haven't infected any of you lot. All right. Yeah, thanks very much. All right, take care of yourselves, and see you all very soon.
Take care.
See you. Bye.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.